Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. Today is 17th of September and it's time for even more photography fun here at Clever Photographer channel. Now, if we never met, my name is Jakub and I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. I'm also the founder of Clever Photographer, and this show specifically is my way of keeping in touch with our photography community. So I hope that by giving you these tips and tricks, I help you to keep moving your photography forward. Now, if you've never seen one of these shows, what we're gonna do? Well, we have a number of photographers that submit their images for this weekly show, and what I do, I basically take their images and I comment on 3 parts of each of the photo. The first part is focusing on a technical part. This is where we look at the camera settings, the gear, and also technical things like brightness, sharpness, noise, and so on. Then we look at the artistic part of the photo. We talk about composition, framing, storytelling, main subject, and all the things that really make the image stand out. And on the top of it, if I think that it's beneficial for this specific photo, I'll also try to give you some tips and tricks on photo editing. Now, for the photo editing part, we use application called Luminar Neo, which you probably know if you follow our channel. However, if you have any other photo editing application, most of the editing we're going to be doing can be also done in that, so don't worry about it too much. So this is what we're gonna do. Now, how to join us? Well, actually, it's really simple. The easiest way to do that is to jump to our website, cleverphotographer.com/membership. That's where you can find more about our Clever Photographer Plus membership. This membership, for a little monthly fee, will give you multiple things. First, access to our Clever Photographer Academy Facebook group, where you can join same photographers, likely-minded photographers talking about photography and sharing their images. After that, you can also submit images to this show. And probably the most important part of the membership is our monthly bundle. Our monthly bundle usually focusing on a specific photography style, like landscape photography, portrait photography, autumn photography, and so on. This bundle usually comes with around 300 elements, and the elements include presets for Lightroom, Photoshop, and Luminar Neo. They also include LUTs that can be used on a number of photo editing applications, overlays, textures, backgrounds, custom brushes, Lightroom brushes, and so much more. So if you want to find out more about it, cleverphotographer.com/membership is the place where you should head. Anyway, this is all out of the way. Now we know what we're gonna be doing. You also know how to join us. So let's start by looking at the images for this week's episode. First photographer for this week's episode is Zdeněk. Zdeněk is one of our regular photographers, and he's actually based in South Africa. Often he sends us images from there, captures of wildlife and beautiful landscapes, but right now I believe that South Africa is actually heading into their spring and soon to the summer, so we have a different style of captures. We actually have these bees, I think they are bees, one on the top of the flower and one hiding in the flower. So it's kind of mix between animal and macro photography. So let's have a look at it right now. As I mentioned at the beginning, we start with the technical part. So let's make the image a little bit bigger and start by looking at the camera details. Now, the image doesn't really say what camera you use, but it says that the lens was 55 to 250 millimeters. Now, when it comes to camera settings for this specific image, ISO 250 for this type of photography is nice and low, so well done there. 163 millimeters, so really zoomed in there. F20 and 1/320th of a second. So, interesting mix of different things. Obviously, with the ISO nice and low, looking at the image, we kind of avoided any extra noise, so that all looks good. 163 millimeters, this is where you want to play around with your f-stop with this kind of long zoom, as it can get really deep very quickly. You can really get lots of blur stuff, and this is maybe why you went for the f20, to make sure that you have the flower as well as the animal in shot. Plus, on top of it, when the animal moves, you will need a quite fast shutter speed to make sure that it's sharp. So I guess this is why the 1/320th of a second. Zdeněk, unfortunately, it's cropped really tight, so when I zoom in, it starts to be a little bit pixelated. I mean, you can see the size of the image, so that's a little bit of a shame. But looking at it like this, it looks as obviously the animal, the center, and the flower is nice and sharp. And then you get this really nice soft background. So I don't see a problem there. I think the sharpness, looking at the image in this quality, looks all good. Noise, I don't really see any. The light, yeah, it does have a little bit of a stronger light here. It gives you some shadows, but I don't think it's necessarily a problem. I think it works quite well. Now, looking at the image itself, talking about technical part, we just see some kind of color leak alongside the edges of the flower. That's one thing which kind of stand out. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but you can kind of see it here and also in these areas. And also here. Now, maybe that's because you soften the background a little bit more, or maybe it actually comes from the camera. I'm not sure. Either way, that is probably that is the main thing that kind of stand out for me. Otherwise, I think technically it's done quite well. Now, talking about the artistic part. So again, looking at things like composition and stuff, I think it works quite nicely. I quite like how you position the flower on one side, giving you a little bit of that empty breathing space. I think that can work really well. What else we have? Again, the soft background creates really nice separation and contrast between the main subject. I think the combination of the colors work really well. The only thing is that I think in overall the image is a little bit over saturated, and I always know that it's the case because when I look at the image for long, like when I do this review show, I can notice that after a while my eyes start to hurt. Basically, it's just too much saturation. Now, when you just look at it and export it and you go on, you probably don't notice it. But if you would print it and if you would ask people to look at it, it would be quite strong. So to adjust this, well, you know, it's super simple. You can just jump into edit module, and like in any of the photo editing applications, you can use something like color or saturation. Here, let's say we use color tool. Here we have an option between saturation and vibrance. Saturation obviously adjusts all the colors on the image, and vibrance pretty much works with the lower toned colors in the image. So for this case, we're going to use the technique I talk about quite often in this show, and that's basically we're going to take the saturation slider and bring it all the way down until the image is black and white. Once we do that, we're going to click on the saturation slider, and rather than looking at the slider and looking at the amount we're adding, we're going to keep an eye on the image itself. So basically, I'm not looking at the slider, I'm looking at the image, and I will start to increase it. And looking at the image, I will increase it to the point where I like the result, I think it's saturated enough, and it just works for me. So for me, I think somewhere around here, maybe just a little bit more is enough. Once I'm happy with the saturation, I let go my mouse, and now I can turn my attention towards the saturation slider, where I can see -15. So -15 on this image, let's have a look, before and after, makes it just a little bit more natural. And why I use this technique? Well, because our head is wired to the numbers. When you do lots of editing, just like many of us, you know that you do +1 or exposure -100, highlights, shadows, and all of that. And we actually unconsciously remember all of that. So if I would tell you to bring the saturation down to -15, you would think it's too much. So to avoid this, to basically confuse the head and lose the attachment to the number, you keep an eye on the image and you increase the slider. And then I think it works really well. The little vignette around is really nice. The details, the contrast, all is good. So just a little bit of saturation, which gives you a subtle difference, but I think it really helps just to make it a little bit more natural. Moving to the second photo, this one was captured with Canon 600D with the lens 85mm. Now looking at the camera settings here, nice and low ISO on 100, 85mm with the prime lens, f16 and 1/200 of a second. Zdeněk, I think camera settings all good there, higher f-stop, but again, just making sure that everything is in nice focus, good shutter speed, there is lots of lovely details on the animal, the hair, the details around, the details in wings here. It just works really, really well. Funny fact, when I'm looking at it, and when I was looking at the image earlier, for some reason, the petals to me look a little bit like nachos, like pieces of nachos, like the texture and the color reminds me nachos for some reason. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that it's beautifully captured. There is minimal noise, just a little bit in the background there. Beautiful light, very nice and soft light. Lovely, lovely details on the animal and around. Yeah, it's beautifully done. Talking about the artistic part, this is a really nice focus. Obviously, bringing the animal straight in. The focal point is the animal. The only thing is that obviously the yellow and kind of orange color is quite strong. So when you look at it, your eyes immediately get attracted by the brighter colors to start with, and only then move on the main subject. But because that's the color of the flower, there is actually not much you can do about it. Obviously, you could do some vignetting or dodge and burn on the color. You could also use HSL panel to adjust the saturation and hue here, or luminance, but I think it works quite well. I think it looks very natural. It's well done together and well produced. I think it's a lovely result. So Zdeněk, thank you very much for both images. It was my pleasure to review them for you. And I'm really looking forward to see more images from you in the next episode. Moving on with our show, now moving to the landscape photographers. The first landscape photographer is Caroline, and she went to visit Venice, looking at the captures. So let's go ahead and look at the two images. Here with the gondolas, with a beautiful, I would say sunset view, but it could also be sunrise. Anyway, looking at the camera details here. Canon 5D Mark IV with 24 to 70 millimeters. And from the camera settings here, ISO 800, 55 millimeters, f11 and 1 second. I have to say, Caroline, this is a beautiful, beautiful capture. And I will not have much to tell you here. I think it's just beautifully done, beautiful light, beautifully put together, beautiful atmosphere. The first impression is already gorgeous. I love the longer exposure, giving us that kind of movement in the gondolas. I think that works really well. And even without me talking about the technical part, this picture is already beautiful. Like I already really, really like it. But higher ISO, obviously with the 1 second exposure, that can be the case. Nice f11 giving you the sharpness from the front all the way to the back, which is also really nicely done. I'm always really impressed by the level of details at the back and also in the front. I mean, when you think the distance between the two places, it's crazy, but it works really, really well. Noise-wise, very limited, all good there. Just kind of looking closer to the details. Keep an eye on the sensor dust. That's something that can easily creep in once you start to go higher with the f-stop. And that's about it. The light is beautiful. It has that kind of really nice warm pinkish haze over it. I'm often a big fan of texture in the sky, but actually here it really works. What it does, this kind of gradient in the sky, it just keeps it much more peaceful, and it kind of give attention back to the boats and the background. So this is a beautiful capture. Definitely one of the nicest Venice captures I've seen for a very long time. So well put together. Composition wise, it's great. The foreground with the gondolas, the background with the buildings. The framing works really well as well. As I say, technically the 1 second long exposure works great here. If you would go longer, the boats would be really blurry. I think this way you can see the details. That works really well as well. Great choice of the day. Brilliant, brilliant. Caroline, I can't tell you much more. It's just beautifully done. As I say, the only thing, if you would ever want to print it, keep an eye on the sensor dust on your photo when you finish the edit. Now, generally, there is a tool here in Luminar Neo called Remove Dust Spots. And what it does when you click on it, it basically scans the image and try to remove them from your photo. However, once there is an element behind them, or in front of them in this case, it doesn't do it. So you will kind of have to be a little careful and maybe do something like this, then click on erase, and then use something like cloning to basically just fix the top, just to kind of avoid that. Now, it doesn't look great, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but that's the way to do it. Now, going into this image. Okay, so the first one I absolutely loved. This one has a few things which I would personally improve. But we're going to start with the camera details. Again, Canon 5D Mark IV, 16 to 35 millimeters on the lens. And from the camera settings, ISO 100, 16 millimeters, f11, 1/13 of a second. So nice and low ISO. It's all good there. Yes, wide shot with the 16 millimeters, f11. Again, good choice here. Talking about sharpness, back and front, it all works. 1/13 of a second at this time of the day, well put together. So I don't think necessarily that technically there is anything wrong. The sharpness is good, the light is quite decent, and there is no noise. However, obviously I could wish for better time of the day. It's already quite impressive that there are no people, but I would just wish it would be a little bit warmer, a little bit more diffuse, something like a morning or evening or something like that. That would be one wish, but that's a wish. That's not necessarily technically wrong. What I think is not wrong here, but basically it's the framing. The framing you need to keep an eye on, and that's the top of the tower. And also, so in overall, it feels like on this part, you're a little bit too high, so it doesn't look very natural. That's the one thing. But more importantly, the edge of the image, the edges. It's really, really important to keep an eye on that. I know it's not always possible, so maybe I would actually take one picture, second picture, and put them together as a panorama. But what happens once you this close to edge, if you would want to print it, talking about canvas, or print it and put it in a frame, the white frame around it, it always takes at least half an inch, and this would disappear, and it really wouldn't look that great. So the framing isn't really great on it. And again, just learning from it is definitely to keep an eye on the edges. Otherwise, it's a lovely capture. It's a lovely scene. All the details are good there. Everything works, but the edges is something I would keep an eye. Anyway, Caroline, I hope you enjoy your visit or trip to Venice. Beautiful pictures, and this one especially is absolutely gorgeous. So thank you for sending it over, and if you have more photos, make sure you send them maybe for the next week episode. And now it's time to move to the second landscape photographer, which is Elizabeth. Elizabeth sent us two versions of each of the photo, one in the raw format and one in the edited format, the final result. So let's have a look at it. What do we have? We have this beautiful landscape with a beautiful sky, lovely light actually coming from a side, lovely texture, lovely color, beautiful capture here. And then the second image is this sunset sunrise. I'm not sure. Let's have a look if we have any details here. No. So let's say it's sunset with a beautiful drama, beautiful light. It just looks very, very pretty. Now it's a little bit on the darker side, so we'll see if we can do something about that. But first, we're going to start with the mountains. So let's have a look. From the raw file here, I think it's always a little bit easier if we just jump into Edit module, use the Enhance AI and open it. So that way we can see what we're looking at while looking at the camera details. So here, Tamron 28 to 300 millimeters with a Canon RP camera. From the camera settings, ISO 100, 31 millimeters, f13, 1/100 of a second. So from the camera settings, spot on, ISO 100, so all good there. F13, giving us sharpness all the way. My preference is between f7.1 and f11, especially when you go as wide as 31 millimeters. Usually that's enough, and it just keeps everything a little bit more manageable. Never mind that most of these lenses generally perform the best around that f7.1 mark, so I would stay around there. But I understand, looking for the sharpness, so that's all good. 1/100 of a second, giving you a really nice sharpness and light. So this is all good. I don't necessarily see any problems there. The sharpness is good, lovely texture in the sky. Looking at it, obviously with this photo, there is a slight motion blur. There's just a touch of it. So I wonder if it focuses maybe on the foreground here. Maybe the foreground is more a little bit in focus. Either way, nothing what you can really fix with something like a super sharp AI or something, but just keep an eye, maybe go for a little faster shutter speed or use a tripod to make sure that you capture it as sharp as possible. Moving to the result, what did you do with the photo? So moving here, obviously you got reduce of some of the distraction of the trees, which I think works really well. I like the overall framing. 1/3 of the sky, 2/3 of the land always work really, really well. It's very well balanced with a kind of if you would draw a line, you would see that the scale would be kind of in the middle. It wouldn't go either side, which I think always gives you a really nice balance. A little bit of warmth work really well here. And in overall, I don't really actually have that much to add to it. I think a little bit of foreground in the middle, the scale represented with the trees, so everybody has an idea on what we're looking at. I think all of this works really, really well. One thing, Elizabeth, I would keep an eye on is the sensor dust. I already talked about it with Caroline, so probably same note for you. You can kind of see it here. You can see another one here. Again, once you go higher with your f-stop, so f13, f16, f22, you will see more and more sensor dust or lens dust, or whatever it causes it. And one way to obviously take care of that in camera is to clean your sensor, bring it to the shop where they do that for you, or here in Luminar Neo or other similar photo editing applications, there will be some kind of erase tool which will allow you to take care of that. Again, just like I showed earlier, you can just click here in Luminar Neo on remove dust spot, which scan the image and remove these just like that. So it only takes a second before and after, and it's done. So it really is one click, and you can see that before and after, it just really help to make it a little bit cleaner. So that's the first photo. Now, moving on the second photo. So dramatic sunset. That's what we decided to call it. Canon RP 28 to 300 millimeters. So same gear here, nice and low ISO, f13 and 1/200th of a second. So nice and low ISO, no problem there. F13, again, I already talked about the f-stop, but f13 isn't really extreme, so all good there. And 1/200th of a second, 1/200th of a second gives you nice light. Now the question is, if we now gonna open some of the shadows, what it's gonna give us. So let's go ahead and grab the raw file. We're gonna bring it into the edit module, and let's just very quickly take the enhance AI and push it up. And when we do that, it already doesn't open this area. So to open it, what we're gonna do, we're actually gonna reset this, reset the edit, and we're gonna jump into no preset. My mistake. Let's go back to edit, revert to original, and then we're going to go to Develop Pro, where we're going to open the shadows and we're going to close the highlights. So let's have a look at it. Lots of noise. Obviously with the raw file focusing on the brighter areas, on the highlights, sometimes some cameras will give you this level of noise. So I guess this is the reason why you went for more silhouette look like, and I completely understand. So going back, now I understand why the result like this. And in overall, I think it works really well. It's a shame that it's really dark, because if you would print it, this area would be really, really dark, and it would, everything that would take an attention would be the sun. So in that case, I would probably crop it even tighter. If you really need to just focus on the sun, I would go on something like this. As I mentioned many times before on this show, in this case, 1/3 of the land and 2/3 of the sky, where the sky is the main subject and main hero. Open it up a little bit using Accent AI just to get some sort of details in these areas, maybe a little sky enhancer, and that's about it. So this is what I would do with this image. Anyway, Elizabeth, both of them lovely captures. I really enjoyed the mountains. I think that's a beautiful capture there. And of course, the sunset is stunning as well. Lots of drama, lots of saturation. Definitely the way I like it. So Elizabeth, thank you for sending it over. Have a lovely week. And if you have more images, I can't wait to see them in the next episode. And finally, to finish the show, we have some images from Dick, who sent us some lovely people photo, basically captures from different occasions. We have one from the Paris Olympics, I believe, and one from some kind of mud fight or race or something like that. Anyway, looking at the first image, this is already a really lovely capture, but I was looking at what you try to do, so I'm not sure. There's 3 different images. I guess this is the original, which is already a lovely capture. Lots of lovely details. It's quite nice framing. Looking at the camera details here, Nikon D5300, 18 to 400 millimeters on the lens. From the camera settings, ISO 1000, obviously for sport photography, for moving subjects, all good there. F6.3 and 1/500th of a second. With 1/500th of a second, actually really lovely sharpness there. Lots of lovely details. Now the skin looks just a little bit smooth, but in overall, I think actually it's nicely done. So light is nice, movement, it's all about basically reporting on this occasion, on this view. And I think that works really well. So all of that good there. When it comes to the artistic part and the composition, again, I think it's nicely done. It's lovely that there is actual space in front of the runner. One thing is a shame that there is this kind of half head there. But I assume that you couldn't really avoid that. So it's not a big deal. I'm talking more about things that you would wish would be a little bit differently. Now, looking at this image, so it's all good there. I like the edit. I think it's nice and saturated and all works there. But I actually really enjoy what you've done with the blur tool or motion blur, because I think that creates really, really nice effect. So well done there. I wonder which look to use, if it was the one of the tutorials we have on our YouTube channel. Either way, obviously it wouldn't necessarily be a capture for like your Sky Sports or something like that, but I just think it's very nicely done and I'm really, really impressed. So well done. Congratulations on this capture. I think first, this is nice, crisp and clean, and this is just very creative and I'm very impressed. Talking about the second capture here, let's see if it actually tells us what it is. Mother Bat Bell Buffalo Run. Still not sure what it is. Anyway, it's a lovely capture. Again, similarly from some kind of occasion where there are different races. Differently here, it's kind of really frozen moment. Obviously, you would a little bit wish that this runner wouldn't be there because that would open the scene a little bit more. What I really enjoy on this photo, let's talk about that, is the mud flying. I think that really adds beautiful texture and beautiful depth to the photo. This one also D5300 from Nikon, 18 to 400 millimeters, and it's ISO 400, 40 millimeters, f4.5, and 1,250th of a second. So from the camera settings, again, that really fast shutter speed gives you this beautiful effect, which I think looks super cool. Wish, just like with the first image, would be that this person isn't there. You know, that would really give nice space in front of the subject. It would kind of open up that space and it would be just, yeah, it would be nice. But otherwise, lovely capture. Again, nice and natural, lovely colors, lovely light, and great work with the shutter speed. So Dick, thank you very much for sending both of the pictures together and sending them over. Again, as I say, I love this edit with the motion blur there. I think that works super, super well and creates nice effect. Just like with the rest of the photographers, if you have more photos you would like to share with us, then you know what to do. Join us and send them over for the next episode. And the same goes for all of you folks. If you want to join us for the next episode of the Photography Review Show, all you need to do is to join our monthly membership called Clever Photographer Plus. Now, to find out more about it, head to our website, cleverphotographer.com/forward membership. Join us today, get our brand new photography digital bundle, and join us for the next episode of our Photography Review Show. For today, have a nice evening. Thank you very much for watching. My name was Jakub Bors, and I can't already wait to see you in the next episode.